Okay, this is Renee Daly with the Economic Development Commission. Today is August 26th, and we will call the meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. Present are myself, Renee Daly, Sandy Olerhead, Laura Parker, and Michael Toole. We also have 4 guests on the line, and Michael, I'll actually turn it over to you. Both William Goldsmith and Spencer Goldsmith are on from Gator Investments, and that is our first topic for business tonight.
Great, thank you, and I'm sorry that I'm still in the car. I'll be out of the car in like 2 minutes, but I appreciate both you gentlemen coming on and joining the EDC. The main purpose of tonight's call was to try to just get an understanding about the property. Specifically, that's obviously a very attractive property within town, and there's a lot of discussion about it, and we were very sad to see Roach Brothers leave. And more importantly, we wanted to see what your vision of the property is and goals are, and if there's anything that the EDC can do to help you find tenants, and or what we can do, because that's obviously one of the turnkey spaces within our town. So that was one of my goals to having you guys on, and also just to, you know, we've never met you. I mean, you're obviously a large commercial property owner in town.
Okay, well that's great. I really appreciate you guys, you know, reaching out to us. And make a long story short, you know, what we need is financial assistance to re-rent the space. And as you know, the shopping center is about half empty, or more now with the supermarket. It's 120,000 square foot shopping center, and with the Roach Brothers vacating, that's a 46,000 square foot hit just by itself. And as you know, we have a lot of other vacancies at the shopping center. You know, starting at the 2 stores that used to be the sporting goods store by McDonald's, and then wrapping around all the way to what was the stores next to the old Blockbuster. And of course,
Bill, that was All-Star Video, which opened in that place on November 10th, 1990, and to the left of McDonald's was Olympia Sports.
Hey, thank you for the update, Peter. Can we just let William talk before we have any discussion?
Okay. Make a long story short is, you know, there is equipment in there. You know, we did purchase some of it. We own and operate a lot of shopping centers across the country. And we've had situations like this before. And it's, you know, usually a very big ticket item to get a grocer in and open for business, millions of dollars, not hundreds of thousands. And we're just trying to find some sort of way to incentivize the tenants. We are in discussions with a number of tenants. Almost everyone has said they want the premises to be turnkey. We had a situation like this just, you know, a few months ago in Jacksonville, where Publix, which is a local Florida supermarket chain, pulled out, and we were able to get the city of Jacksonville to assist with. They paid around 40% of the costs, and the landlord and the tenant put in the balance. And we were able to get Winn-Dixie to go in there and open up where they would otherwise not have gone in. I had a situation like this, you know, just recently in Philadelphia, where the Pathmark went bankrupt. They were a supermarket chain in the Northeast, and we were able to incentivize with the city and get ShopRite to come in. Soup to nuts, I think by the time they finished doing that whole thing, it was almost a $10 million investment. to get them open. Here it'll be less because we have a lot of the equipment. And there the Pathmark was old and run down. This one is more akin to the Publix, but we're probably looking at a $4 million, $5 million number, which is not uncommon to have $100 a square foot number to get the tenant in and open. We probably may have to divide up the space into 2 tenants because a lot of the supermarkets that we're doing these days, Aldi, I'm doing a couple of Lidl's. They take a smaller number, 20, 25,000 square feet. But in any event, if we can get the grocer in this day and age when you're having, so many big boxes fail and retail is, in a catastrophic position because of the advent of internet sales and the whole Amazon process and way. We have to really be creative to get tenants in, and then once they're in, then we can rent up usually the best, the rest of the center, and then we find that it turns out to be a win-win for both the city and for the property owner, because we create a lot of local jobs just with the construction, create a number of local jobs with permanent employment and employment taxes. We help kickstart the corridor and help improvements up and down the corridor, and then of course you get permit fees and taxes go up because the property values go up, and that's typically how we're proceeding. We don't have a tenant yet, but we would like to put together some sort of a deal where we can hold out some carrots for them, because we can't be putting in $4 or $5 million for a tenant. And that's basically where we stand. We have to move quickly because we don't want to lose the good tenants that we have. Dollar Tree is one of the few tenants that can make it in this COVID era. They could make it pre-COVID. They're actually doing very good post-COVID. Planet Fitness obviously is struggling with the whole COVID and the social distancing and the masks, but they can make it long term. Obviously, McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts are going to make it, COVID or no COVID. But with the advent of online retail and post-COVID, we have to. There's a limited number of people that we can rent to. We think, we have a good property in a good city, so we're optimistic. But that's basically where we stand, and I don't know what else to say at this time. Hopefully that will give you some perspective on where we're at. Obviously, we've seen our income cut by more than 50% just with this one grocery store leaving.
I think absolutely. I think it's obviously your portfolio for this chain of stores is, for this property is that the Roach Brothers leaving, but it's definitely a absence within our town. I know there is a desire through the town to find a grocer to go into that store. Is your perception on, if you had to give your feeling on a grocer going to that store or a type of business that's going into that type of store, is there any vibe that you're getting from just discussions that you've had with other retailers about that? Or is that wishful thinking that we're going to get another grocer in that store, in that location, or not?
Only if we incentivize it to a point that will be, it has to be something that is going to really attract them. I don't have to tell you, because you're Economic Development Committee, the playing field has changed dramatically, and the number of people that can make it is limited. And the best type of tenant for foot traffic and for synergy with renting up the rest of the center is a grocer. And we think that if you're going to get a grocer, I mean, we're going to be able to get them because, you know, we're probably a landlord for 100 grocery stores from Puerto Rico up to Massachusetts, all the way out to Nevada. And, you know, we do a ton of these. You know, I've built out a lot of these spaces, but I know what they want. They want to come in basically at half the cost or less. And you know, we think that we can do that. Obviously, that would be the highest and best use for the property, be the highest and best use for the community. It would create the most jobs, and it would give us the greatest chance of leasing up the balance of the center and put this in a position where it should be. I think Roche Brothers was not the right grocery store for this space anyway. I think that you know, they had a nice store and they had delicious prepared foods, but you know, more of a value-oriented grocery store is probably more realistic.
How would a specialty grocery store fit in this location? I mean, it's, you know, when we look at the grocery market, I mean, especially in that part of town, if you do a 5-mile circle, you've got a lot of competition. You've got Shaw, you possibly might have Stop and Shop, you have Big Y, a specialty in Aldi or a Trader Joe's. I mean, while I know they meet certain income requirements in the demographic, they do lack locations in Rhode Island and Southeastern Mass. Is that something that, I mean, is this, you've had experience, it sounds like you've worked with them prior. What is your feeling in regards to a specialty type of grocery store that's similar to them?
The best. I mean, if you can get a Chinese specialty, an Italian specialty, we have an Italian specialty grocer, Uncle Giuseppe's, operating out of the Hillside Shopping Center in Long Island. That would do unbelievable in this area. Chinese grocery stores do phenomenal. And Aldi, Lidl, Save-A-Lot would do phenomenal. You know, so I mean, you're right on track.
And I don't mean to, I'm sorry, Madam Chairman. May I continue? I'm monopolizing the conversations and the questions.
No, go ahead, please, Michael.
Let's kind of nail it down here. When you talk about incentives, I mean, for us, we've basically managed TIFs for different businesses within town. For us to manage a TIF that would ultimately get through a rented property, I can't even get my mind wrapped around that. How do you explain a situation on incentive initiatives that you might be speaking of? I mean, you may have experience from it, you may not, and I'm just trying to get my arms wrapped around it, and maybe the rest of the commission is also trying to get their arms wrapped around it on incentives for attracting someone.
It's usually a percentage, but I mean, the total nut will be $1 million to $2 million of incentives that we'll need, and I think then we'll be able to take it from there.
Can I ask a question, please?
Go ahead, Laura.
I'm just going to be frank and state that the level of vacancy within the plaza was not great when Roche Brothers was there. I'd be interested to know how you would perceive that improving with the installation of a new grocer, and how you would work to achieve that, please.
I think that the type of grocers, that we just spoke about will create the traffic and the synergy that we need in order to make this work. I don't think that Roche Brothers was the best choice. Someone like a Price Right which is ShopRite, someone like a Aldi or a Lidl will bring in a better traffic, and a specialty grocer would bring in better traffic. So I don't think Roche Brothers was right. And just more of a value-oriented or a specialty grocer is what I think this would need based on our experiences at other shopping centers throughout the country. And we operate quite a few of them.
So, Laura, you might have this information. I thought that we had some discussion early on with another representative at Gator Investments about other grocers going in there. And William, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I was under the impression that they did some analysis and didn't see the financial sustainability in that location. Is that the case?
Who was the person that you spoke to that said that for at Gator Investments that said that a supermarket cannot make it?
The person with whom we had originally spoken, this was before Roche Brothers had closed, and they had just announced that they were closing, was Christina, I believe, Camacho.
Yeah, she's in leasing. I spoke with Jim Goldsmith. He's my brother and my partner. And I'm sure that what I just told you is the right fit for this shopping center. And I think it'll be sustainable, and I think it'll be a big improvement.
At the time when I had spoken to Christina, again, this was several months ago, she had indicated that she had the space, or the Gator had been in contact with all of the existing grocers that operate within the Northeast. At the time, I think she said she was still waiting to hear back from Aldi. And I think ultimately it was decided the market analysis and metrics for the space just didn't seem to fit the space.
If we incentivize it, I think it will. I think that the type of grocers that I just told, the right ones for this particular property. So I can't speak about what Christina told you. I don't agree with that.
Okay. I think, I am of the opinion that a shop, I'm only really familiar with Aldi, but when she did say that she was waiting to hear back from them, I also thought it was one of the better options for that space, given there's not a lot of them around. They tend to be lower price points, and I do think it would be the type of store that could attract folks from other town and take up some of the competition.
I mean, you have a limited area for retail, and I'm trying to pull up my Google Earth map as I'm speaking to you. I've built out a lot of Aldis. I mean, I just finished one in Minneapolis, and I just put one in right outside of Cincinnati, and I know what kind of financial deal we made with them, and I know what they would need, and I just think they would do phenomenal here. But getting them to this location is, going to be something we're going to really, they're obviously grocery stores are in great demand. They're doing well post-COVID, and they have a lot of options. So we have to really, reach out and do what we can. But what kind of incentives can the city help us with to get this center back on track?
So a couple of things. I'm sorry, Renee, may I take this for a little bit?
Go ahead, please.
So, Mr. Goldsmith, I think that's where we're a little immature in the process. We are a very conservative town. We're a town of 20,000 with populations of 2 cities around us of 50,000 and 40,000. If you average the income around us, we are at about 90 to 95,000 average income with those cities with an average population well over, with a 5-mile radius population of about 100 and I believe it was 130. I could be wrong about that, but with that being said, we typically, like I said, for us it is definitely use for us on a leased property, giving a TIF for a not owned property. So we definitely need some guidance on that as a commission. And maybe I'm speaking for the commission, and I don't mean to as a whole without the discussion point, but we definitely have an eye on your property as wanting to fill it. I don't think anyone on this commission can give you a commitment, but we would definitely, and we understand that you're looking to help try to fill that position, but we're also trying to figure out what's the happy medium of offering an incentive, but what's the tax revenue that we're bringing in as well.
So, William,
Yeah.
this is Renee. I think a starting point might be if you can share some of those details that you negotiated. I think you mentioned specifically around Cincinnati with us, so we can have a look at that and share that with our town manager. I mean, he's ultimately responsible for doing the negotiation, and then it's reviewed with the Economic Development Commission, then approved by the Select Board, and then at our town meetings. But if you can provide us with, and we don't need confidential details, but a high level overview of what was negotiated and what a company like Audi would want to see to come to the area, I think at a minimum we can review that and give that to the town manager and start the conversations there.
And I think or a Trader Joe's or something like that is, we've thrown out some informal surveys out there and it's been very favorable. We've done the request Trader Joe's by your location and gotten, sent them 150 requests at one shot at a time several times. But I know an Aldi would be a very happy medium. I would love to see, to Renee's point, what the proposals are and what that looks like in the negotiations.
Right. We can get you that, and we can also see what it would take to get Trader Joe's to come in, and we can look and see, what it would take to get maybe some other specialty grocery stores to come in.
Mm-hmm.
and get back with you with each one of these things. And then I guess procedurally, how does that work? You review this with the city manager, and then we go back to you need to get a recommendation from the Economic Development Committee and to bring to the city commission. Is that how it works?
So we are, so one of the things about the Economic Development Commission is a select board type town. So we have a town manager and we have a select board of 5 members. And we have an Economic Development Commission. 2 of the members of the select board are on the Economic Development Commission, and then the other members are there. So it's a very synergistic approach. So I would definitely work through Renee if that's all right with you, Madam Chair, to
Sure.
Send that information. I'm all in favor of giving Renee more work. Somebody always more, or either myself or Renee, so we can try to make that work. I can tell you right now, there's a big desire to get this spot filled. I would say, Sandy, I mean, you've been quiet. I don't think I could, as I speak for the whole committee, there is a very big desire to get this spot filled. So either through the select board or the Economic Development Commission.
And Renee, how would I reach? What's your email and your cell?
My email is rdeley @nortonmaus.com. I always have to think if it's my initial or my name. And then my cell phone number is 508-728-7267. So
that's 508-728-7267. And
Yes.
the email is R as in Romeo. Deli, D, David, E, elephant, L, Lima, E, elephant, Y, yellow, at
Yes.
Norton.ma.
No, just
Or Norton.
Norton MAUS, all one.
.com.
Yes.
So I'll get you the information and send it to you. And then either I or Spencer will follow up with a call to see what we do. And procedurally, you'll need time to present it to the city manager. And then it'll presumably come back to the Economic Development Committee. And then it would go to the city commission is what you call the selectmen, correct?
Correct. Yep. So it has multiple steps. Like I said, the town manager is ultimately responsible for the negotiation, and then he would bring it to the Economic Development Commission for review, present it to the select board for approval. And actually, I think I skipped initially, our finance committee would also have to approve it as well. And then it goes on a warrant for a town meeting, and it's approved through a town meting. So there are multiple steps that take place for, at least at this point, for a TIF type incentive. You know, I don't know what the details are around the others, so we'd really have to either seek the town manager's advice on that or town council's on the approval process. And I can do that in parallel.
Okay, and two questions to ask you. After the city manager negotiates this with the property owner and we negotiate it with the tenant, it would go to the finance committee first or the economic development committee first?
I believe it would come to the Economic Development Committee first for support.
And then goes to the finance committee.
And then it goes to the select board and then the finance committee.
And then the finance committee has the final say?
They would recommend it for, essentially what happens is it goes on a town meeting warrant as an article, and that article has recommendations from the finance committee and the select board on it. If the finance committee recommended it, they would move it as part of the normal process at the meeting. If they did not recommend it, it would have to be moved by somebody else. And by moved, I mean it has to go, it essentially has to be, for lack of a better term, open for the town to vote on it.
I got you. And how long does, you know, assuming everything went favorably and everyone was on the paperwork and the presentation and the city's reception to what we gave them is good, how long does this whole process take from beginning to end?
I really couldn't answer that question. I can ask our town manager. You know, I think that there are several variables that we wouldn't know. It hasn't been unheard of. Like what I would call kind of the most restrictive is the town meeting. We do have 2 town meetings that we hold per year, but it is not uncommon for us to have a special town meeting when we're looking at an incentive program. And we have done that in the past. But I'd have to get more information. And I think, again, we need to understand what we're looking at as part of incentives too, because, you know, I'm familiar with the TIF process, but anything else that might be included in there, I just don't know.
Okay. So it could be as fast as 90 days, 60 to 90 days, but it could be as long as 6 months. Would that be a fair statement?
I
90
think
days is a little bit weak, but I think if you came to us saying Aldi needs to, I think we could probably figure out our act, but I think 90 days is very generous.
90 days is very fast.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think you're probably looking at it at best like 3 to 6 months. I know you said 60 days in there. I don't think 2 months is reasonable for the process.
Okay. No, the only reason I'm asking is Jim, my brother, handles all the lease negotiations with the supermarket tenants, and he knows the guys on a first name basis, and he's at all the conventions and the ICSC, and he may try and do something where he takes one of our, locations that, we have, 3 or 4 people dying to take it, and say, okay, we'll do that, but, you know, we may have to also go here, and here's the terms that we're going to do. And he may bootstrap it in. I've seen him do that before. So I'm just going to try and lay it out for him and just give him some parameters. Just so I can just give him a ballpark idea. How does the TIF money work? Is it credits, or is it cash, or is it how does it work in Norton?
You know, as Michael indicated before, I don't know that we're familiar enough with a TIF to a renter, because a TIF is specifically a tax relief or a tax incentive, and it's typically on, and you guys please correct me from our last meeting, on the property or the real estate tax. So, you know, again, I think that we need to understand the details of what you're looking at, and then we can engage the town manager and provide more guidance to you on that.
Is there any possibility that there could be grants like we usually get when we're building in other areas where the city wants us to fast track something to get them open? Have you ever done that or no?
So we have, you know, from a grant perspective, I know that there are some available for redevelopment or developments. We had some conversation on that. That would be a further conversation with our planning director. Additionally, if you guys remember, he did indicate that there's a process to expedite a permit, I believe, right? Let me look at my notes.
You did.
Yeah, so that, you know, those are all things, William, again, I think if you give us an idea of what you guys negotiated previously, we can take it to them and we can have that conversation. I would say, I don't know if you're the best person or your brother is the best person, but if you can forward along those details as well, we'll make sure that the town manager gets in touch with whomever he needs to have further discussion.
And again, I apologize that Jim couldn't be. He's actually on a flight right now, and he couldn't dial in. But I will make sure that I get him, you know, the full summary. He's very interested in trying to work with you guys and some of the grocers that are in our portfolio, and see what we can do to try and, you know, make this a win-win for you know, the city, the residents, us, and for the tenant too.
No, I think it's great too, and you know, like Michael indicated, there's been a lot of chatter on social media, and I don't think that you know, anybody looks negatively upon bringing another grocer in that area. I think that the town really wants it, so it's a good opportunity for us as well. And I was going to say something, and I just lost my train of thought. Michael, were you going to mention
Yeah,
something?
and I think to your point, Mr. Goldsmith, I think this is, unless we have open communication between us, the town manager, and so forth, if we have constant open communication, we can all be working on this to try to land someone there. It does not in anyone's benefit to leave that spot empty. It's bad for the town. It's bad for you. It's bad for everyone. It's just, so we want to work with you to try to make that happen. Obviously, we're all tied by certain limitations, but I think we're willing to work and see how far we can push it.
Right. Well, I appreciate all your time, and I'm going to get everything so Jim has some information where you can put the pencil to the paper and try and move this as quickly as possible and see what parameters it will take to accomplish this goal. And that's
right.
Basically all I can do on this phone call. I do appreciate all your time, and I do appreciate your interest, and I can only assure you we will put our best foot forward.
That's great. There's two other things that I just would like to bring up and then just put it on your radar. There are two things that I know our town needs specifically. One is, and I know Ms. Ladd Camacho will be bringing to your attention, we have a need currently of, because of COVID, our election process is a little upside down, and we have a need for a location for early voting, and I know she'll give you all the details, but possibly looking for a donation for a short-term early voting location of a small space, and she can give you all those details. And the second would be possibly a water facility within the parking lot, which I want to maybe make an introduction between you and a local springs company that consider trying to place a water facility for residents to purchase water in 5-gallon pail and 5-gallon jugs and so forth. I think those are two things that are, one short term, obviously the early voting, and then the second is water's always been an issue in Norton, and although we have a new treatment water facility that's doing wonders for us, slowly but surely, there's still a desire for that. And I know there's a company called Simpson in the area that might be looking to place a water facility in a retail spot that might be beneficial or not. But I wanted to see if you might be open to those two options.
Yeah, we're open to both, and we'll get back to you on this as well as the structure of the other deals that we've done.
Wonderful.
And we'll try and get you something this week. I know it's already Thursday for all intents and purposes. So let's just say early next week. But I'll try and get Jim on the horn when he lands and see what we can do to get you what you need.
We appreciate it.
How many square feet do you need for your early voting facility?
I think the 1,500 is what we're looking for general election, is what we're looking for the early voting, and it's a 2-week period, and that may extend to the actual voting day, but which is only an additional 4 days. But we're looking at 2 weeks that are key to us. Unfortunately, because we're trying to limit it, because our schools are back in session at that point, and we typically do our voting facilities are at schools, and we're trying to remove it from the schools. And COVID is just thrown a monkey wrench in everything. And we don't want to throw a monkey wrench in your business operation, but we also think it might be good exposure for the plaza as well, having the voting there as well, if you could do it.
And what are the dates that you need this for?
It would be starting October 17th through October 17th through Election Day, which I believe, if someone can correct me, is November 3rd, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So it would be the 17th through the 3rd.
I know, because it's my son's birthday.
I'm so sorry. Should I say congratulations, or I'm sorry? I don't know which one to do for him.
It's not his first birthday.
There we go.
But in any event, the parking lot water sales is going to be, what dates do you need that from?
That's not a date thing, and it's something that's a longer conversation as well. I want to make an introduction to you. Water filling stations have been a little issue within town. But with that being said, it's something that I know that a local spring is trying to find a location, and I'm going to make an introduction between you, and then you guys can speak to see if it's a suitable option for the two of you to meet.
So they want to rent a land lease, a spot in the parking lot for a longer period of time, maybe a matter of years, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so they want some sort of kiosk or out parcel. Do you know how many square feet they need?
I don't, and I apologize. As I'm bringing both of these items up as kind of a side thing, so it's not on our agenda, so I do apologize, Madam Chair. So I can send that to Christine. I can send all the details to Christina Ladd, and we can kind of finish up on those issues on a side note.
Okay, I work with Christina a lot too, but the fastest way to get that done would be if you go online to www.gatorinvestments.com and then you scroll through, you'll find, just hit the state, Massachusetts, and then it'll pop up 4 or 5 shopping centers, and then you hit Great Woods, and then you'll see a brochure, and then that brochure will have a site plan. If you can just kind of mark out where, you would want that, or put me in touch with the operator, and we can reach out to them and handle that for you if that would be easier.
Yeah, I think that would be, but this is, Absolutely. I think that's one of the best plans to do, move forward, going forward on that. And I apologize, Madam Chairman, for bringing those two subjects up.
No, it's appropriate, Michael. I mean, it's, this area is about new business updates and interests, so.
Yeah.
No need to
Then I will
apologize.
I'll refer the two of them over. I know that there's for us, our town would benefit greatly for having a water facility like that in Norton. And there's a lot of debate on, and I think that's one of the things that I think our residents would look forward to, and I think would be a benefit and a draw to the plaza as well.
Well, our position is yes, yes, and yes. We want to help with your early voting. We want to help with your water filling station facility, and we want to work with the city in getting a grocery store open. And I'll put these all on one single memo, and I'll share it internally with leasing and with my brother, and I'll spearhead it with Spencer, and we'll make sure we get this moving along, and we'll update it, every few days to keep us on track.
Oh, we appreciate that.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. Are there
I
any
really
other
appreciate-
questions from the commission? Okay. Sorry, William, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Appreciate your time, and we'll be in touch, and you all have a great day.
Great. Thank you. You too. Thank you so
Hey,
much
B.
for coming and talking with us.
And be safe with that hurricane coming through. I know you guys are down in Florida, so hopefully you guys are not on its path.
We're in Miami. We're on the other side. I think the hurricane's coming into the Gulf.
Okay.
So I think we're in good shape there. But anyway, I wouldn't be, I appreciate everything, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Be well.
Thank you both. Anything else on this item for business
Yeah.
updates or interest or any comments?
I have one idea. While we are negotiating something for the tenant, we should also find some way to incentivize Gator into maximizing occupancy, and whether that is some sort of Tiff. Set occupancy goals for a certain period of time and make them market that space and get somebody in there.
Laura, that is dead on. I think this is a start of a conversation that I think one of the things that I'm a big fan of, squeaky wheel gets the oil. And I think if we work with them and kind of stay on them, I think we'll see that plaza full.
I think they're hurting, and we need to find some way to get them to better.
Right.
I was hoping that they would offer that when I asked the question. Well, that site has been more than half vacant for the entire time I've lived here, and you've done nothing. So what do you plan on doing? And I don't think adding a new store fixes everything.
And I think the original conversation Laura had and this conversation are two different conversations. And I'm actually relieved to hear that they've actually have relationships with an Aldi or with some of these specialty grocers that, I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse, but it makes me feel a little more at ease that they know who to call, right? I mean, Michael Toole can send a letter to Miss Anderson from Trader Joe's, but they don't know Michael Toole. So
They don't?
Something, I'm kind of a big deal, but not in this situation.
Could I ask a question? Sorry.
Sure.
He had mentioned getting his brother involved and said he handles the negotiations with grocery leasing. He used the term bootstrap. Did I understand that correctly, in that he could basically not coerce, but
I was going to say, careful with that word.
incentivize a store in a location like ours by dangling the availability of a more highly sought after space? Was that what he was saying? By bootstrap?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't want to answer, but I mean, I would tend to.
That's how I interpreted it, but I was wondering if anybody else did.
I mean, I thought it was interesting when he was talking about that, like getting multiple tenants. And I kind of got the impression too that, they would kind of light a fire under them by saying there are other people interested. But I got to tell you, I mean, based on your previous conversations and what we've seen in that plaza, I don't see the urgency of multiple grocers trying to get into Great Woods. I mean,
No,
if they can make that happen, then awesome.
I interpreted it as they have other more desirable locations that these stores are fighting to get into. And the way I was interpreting what he was saying is they could package it and say, okay, you're not our first choice for this space, but if you open another store here in this place that needs help, Norton, we'll put you to the top of the list in the desired location.
That's how I understood that it would be very similar to what you just said, Laura.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Mike wants to talk, but it says he's muted. Hold on. Mike, you're on 2 different sessions, so I'm gonna try to, I mean, I don't see you as muted. Let me try your other side.
Can you hear me?
Oh, we got you now.
Hey, perfect. Yes, Laura, you're absolutely right. If they have a prospective tenant looking at a more attractive property, they could say, we're going to make a package deal, and you need to move into a less attractive property, and that would happen to be Great Woods Plaza.
Okay, good. I'm fine with
Yep.
that.
I thought he was alluding to, and he didn't get there. I thought he was alluding to also, like, if they were interested in being with another one of their customers, that they would make that happen too. And maybe I just misinterpreted it as I was writing notes. Anyone get that impression during that discussion?
I think it was whether it was an existing customer or prospective, customer. I think it was, whether incentivizing is the right word, or it was creating a package deal for them, saying, look, if you want a property in Chestnut Hill, we're gonna ask you to, could we package it up with this property in Norton, and then create a package deal for them. That's exactly what it was. That's, so Laura, you're spot on.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I don't think
the only.
I'm sorry, Mike. Continue.
No, the only, and I didn't want to, the only thing that seemed very disingenuous to me is, he said Roach Brothers, and he said this repeatedly, Roach Brothers was not the right tenant for that property. Well, Roach Brothers has been there for more than 20 years. Laura, how long have they been there? As long as I can remember, right?
Yeah, I've only been in town just over 10, so they've been here as long as I've been here.
All right, so I can remember driving through Norton in probably the late 90s or mid 90s or earlier than that, and they were there. So I think it's disingenuous to say they were the wrong anchor tenant for the property, yet he collected rent checks month over month, and when those 10-year leases came up, they had no problems re-signing the lease.
Right.
So I think, Laura, you said it.
Help them, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it was helping them, or if they weren't the right tenant, exit the tenant and bring the right tenant in 10 years ago. But having said that, I don't think that bringing Aldi in there is going to save is going to fix the vacancy issue.
No.
That's a different thing.
Mike, I would disagree with you a little bit, and this is why I would disagree with you. A regular grocer is the wrong fit for that location. And if someone wants to keep doubling down as a landlord, I as someone who owns properties, I'm not one to tell a tenant, no. Even if I think it's the wrong fit, if they want to keep doubling down, that's not up for me to say if they meet the terms. An Aldi or a specialty store will draw people. If you have an Aldi, it will draw people from other towns. If you have a regular grocery store, it won't draw people from other towns because there are other grocery stores out there. If you have a Trader Joe's, you will pull people from 5 to 6 different communities around here that are not going to go to Foxborough. Whereas, and guess what? And though that traffic will increase the usage of the plaza, which will basically just build desire. And that's why I think I don't think a regular grocery store will fail there, in my opinion. It will, just because you've got Shaw's at a better price point. You got Stop and Shop as a better price point. Your Big Y is a better price point. 138, you got Big Y. Market Basket. Those stores are not going to go in there. They don't have the square footage but it's, if you have a specialty, you'll draw people. He's right. If you've got a Patel market that's in Attleboro, you go into that specialty store. While it may not be what I want, it's packed because it's drawing people from from all over.
I think we're not a big enough city for a Patel. We're not, it's going to do better in a city that has a more diverse population. But I think same with a Chinese grocer. You put a Chinese grocer out in Quincy, Braintree, Weymouth area, it's going to do exceptionally well because you've got that population that's there.
So, Laura, I'm going to agree with you. And honestly, I think Aldi would do great there.
I do too.
But I don't think it's going to create, I don't think it's going to cure their vacancy issue.
It might help. It should improve. There should be a slight improvement, I would hope.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can hope. And that's why I think when he comes back and he's looking for his tax incentives and whatever grants that he's talking about, I'd like before the town, opens the wallet, I'd like them to demonstrate how this has been successful in similar situations. And and really that's really my point.
That's a good point.
Do we know what the vacancy is now? Is it 40%? I mean, before Roach, was it 40% vacancy?
I sent everyone over a diagram of the town, of the plaza. This today.
I think there were 7 sites available prior to Roach Brothers leaving.
I thought he said they're at 60% vacancy now.
Yeah, they're at 60%.
It's well over 50.
Can I ask a question about, before we talk about giving any sort of incentive, what are we losing in terms of taxes by Roach Brothers leaving? What have we lost? How much, what does that quantify to?
So,
have that dollar somewhere.
and I can't say it's the same, but $4 and call it $4.50 approximately, $4.50 per square foot. No, that's not that high. That's total. That's the triple net for leasing one of these places. So triple net is maintenance and all that. So it's probably a third of the triple net, give or take.
I don't know, Sandy. I'd have to ask Mike. I know they're not one of our top 10.
So.
Yeah, I guess that's what when we give tips and we give tax incentives or anything like that, we're talking about companies that are huge and bringing in money, and I don't know that we've ever given any kind of incentive at all to anybody who rents, right? That's to gator themselves is one thing, but to give it to a renter, I don't know that we've ever done anything like that.
You would have to give it to Gator, and Gator would have to pass it on through the triple net.
Right. So I guess my question is how much of what's the benefit to us?
Well, I think we have to think outside of just financial, right? Because when you think about providing services to the town, I think a grocery store adds a huge benefit to that, especially if they're available, during things like a hurricane or some sort of a crisis, right? Because people don't want to travel far distances to get basic necessities. And then on the other hand too is, I like Mike's idea about having them demonstrate how putting in an Aldi's or somebody else is going to attract other businesses, because the bottom line is, do we want that place to sit vacant? And then over time, Gator's not going to have the money to invest to actually make it look like a decent property. And then, it's just going to steamroll from there. So I think that we have to think of it across the board. I do like Laura's idea of let's incentivize Gator to do something, and we pass along that, that break to them, and then they have to make it work however they see fit. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know that we've ever done it for a grocer previously or somebody who is a renter. I think we have to ask Mike about that.
You can't do it through a renter. You have to do it through the owner. So, right, but the owner passes it through on the triple net.
Yeah, I think what he's looking for is I think he's just literally looking for us to write a check.
Yeah,
That's
but
what he
that's
wants,
not
but
gonna happen.
it's,
I mean,
we don't, as a general rule, even on our tips, we don't,
Thank you.
we never do it through a check. We do it through, basically you get a discount through your taxes. So basically what a grocer would be doing is getting paid through the taxes of what Peter charges them on the portion of their taxes.
Oh, I understand that, but he is looking for a lump sum upfront to help in with the installation and operating and opening.
That's not, you, I'm a pro-business person in this town. I can guarantee you that is not going to happen unless there is some state grant that will attract a business due to grocery stores or so forth.
Yeah, I don't think he is familiar with, he kept referring to us as a city, which I had an issue with. He kept talking about comparable places where he's done that, and Jacksonville and Philadelphia were the two. You know, I don't really think he understands the size and scope of the town and the budget that we're dealing with and, you know, our current financial situation.
Like I said, it's up to them to try. It's a win-win for them if they fill that location. The question is, can it be a win-win for us to give them an incentive to bring someone here?
There's a cost benefit analysis that needs to be done.
I'm not sure if any of you guys have driven in that plaza since Roach Brothers left. It is a huge hole.
it's a ghost town. I mean, I go
that's
there
what
to Fiesta,
and if I was driving here to go to, if I was someone driving through this town to go to a spot to look at a potential another business, you look at that and you say,
You know what we should have asked that I forgot about, because we've heard the what was that new company, Bumblebees or Tumblebees, or the woman that was trying to open up a second location, like a kids play area.
Yeah.
What was it, Sandy?
Is that what it's called?
I think so, because I've heard that wasn't happening, and I don't know if she backed out or what. I wish I had thought of that when he was on the line.
I heard that was not happening as well.
So let's see what he sends to us, and you know, I'll share it when it comes.
So regarding those other two issues I brought up, I had asked Christina Loud Camacho because the clerk had asked me to see investigate if there's space within there for voting. And she didn't see it as a problem, but she obviously needs permission. I just wanted to put it on his radar to make sure that he knew that we were asking for it. And the second is Simpson Springs Water. They've got units similar to the one in Attleboro and in Easton that are just sitting vacant on their lot that they might be open to placing within certain towns.
Yeah, Mike, are you raising your hand again to speak, or was that up already?
I was not. That was up already. My hand is tired.
Okay. Well, thank you, Michael. I like the idea of the Simpson Springs. I'm sure other people will, other than the fact that they'll say, well, we should have free water. But
If that's the ship I'm going down on, that's the ship I'm going down on. I'm going down with water.
okay, anything else? No? Okay, why don't let's move on to the marijuana bylaw and overlay project. So I sent an email out with the RFI applications. I know of 5, and I apologize, I have not looked at my email today to see if Mike sent any others. Let me scan it real quick.
So, Madam Chairman, I'm not sure when the right time to bring this up is, and it was a discussion about community host agreements and the number that we would entertain at one point. I just want to make sure that I misunderstood something, and I just want to make sure that I want to get some understanding on it.
So yeah, give me a second, Michael. Let me just close out.
You're also
this
fritzing
item
out on us. You're like going in and out video-wise. There you go.
Oh, I see it.
Mike, that's a disco ball in the office.
It is, yeah. Hold on.
She's doing digital flashes into her camera.
Is my audio going in and out too? Or just my
Nope.
camera?
Just your camera. There you go. Hi, how are you?
I just shut off and turn it back on like the stop video, so I don't think I solved anything. Let me know if I start going disco again. Okay, so I didn't see any other emails from Mike, so it looks like we have the 5 applicants. If we can just quickly go through the dates. We've been back and forth on the dates. Paul has a couple conflicts. I saw that both Mike Units and Mike Massini responded to say that there weren't any conflicts. I will send out unless anybody has another conflict. So it looks like Wednesday the 9th is not going to work. So I was going to look for another day that week. And I believe I'll have to check the calendar, but if Thursday the 10th is open, I might switch to Thursday the 10th because that should not be a select board meeting. Because we were scheduled for the 3rd. So then our next meeting should be 2 weeks from then.
So question to ask you, is this the whole committee or is this individuals within the EDC?
This is the entire commission and Mike and Paul, because it's the review committee.
Okay.
So just from the perspective of those on the line, would the September 10th pose any conflicts if I change that first item, which was Wednesday, September 9th, 7 to 9 to Thursday the 10th? And Laura, I think you're on vacation, so you can trump this all and just say you don't want a meeting that week.
That's
The
fine.
best thing is she's moved her vacation like 3 times.
I don't mind sitting in on my vacation.
Okay, so I have to just see, I don't think planning board typically meets on Thursday nights. So we should be okay. Let me see if I can pull up the town calendar. I don't know if they posted it yet though. Massini or Tool, does the 10th pose any initial
10th is
conflicts for you?
10th is
Aside from the fact that it's the NFL kickoff that Thursday night, yeah, I can do it.
I have a DVR if you'd like me to record it for you.
I know Sandra, I'm speaking on behalf of Sandy because I know she's a big football fan.
It's my top concern. Is anybody good left playing?
Is anybody what?
Is anybody good left playing? Are all the good players backing out?
I don't know. I think that's it's not the Patriots, so we're good. I'll be fine.
Okay. See if my video comes back.
What are you looking? You're looking at us to review the applications prior?
Yes. Let me get back into my email, Michael. So the applications, as I mentioned, all the information will be put up on Dropbox, so we'll have that beforehand. I need to get with Mike tomorrow to figure out what that timing is. I haven't heard back from he or Paul on that item, him or Paul. And then I think, let me see, did Paul just respond to say, so the 15th is also a conflict for him?
Yes, he did.
And we would have a meeting on that Thursday. So the question would be, did we already we took out, he also had a meeting on September 16th, I believe, right? Yeah, so he has a conflict 15th and 16th. Is Charter Commission meeting on the 14th?
They are.
Okay, so I think we're not going to be able to meet that week.
So the 10th was a lock. The following week is a no-go.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it.
Okay.
Because that's supposed to be.
And you don't believe we could get what we need to get done on the 10th, right? You think we need 2 days.
I mean, we have four different applications. So I think even if we read all 4 and came prepped to discuss them, I just think that's a lot of information to get through.
Okay.
And maybe this is a good segue, Sandy, to talk about the rating process.
Yeah, so I had sent Mike, Laura, and Renee, I think of the 3 I sent it to, based on our last meeting of the start of the rubric. I started trying to take the criteria and turn it into a rubric, but I was finding that it was kind of broad, and some of the things in our review criteria didn't really translate well into the specific data and documentation that we were looking for. So I did kind of pull up had a different approach to it that I wanted to go over. I don't know if you want me to just send it to everybody or how you want to do that, Renee.
Do you want to share it now?
You want to share the screen?
I might have to give you permission. Hold on. Okay, you should be able to share. Mike, I see two of you, one on phone. Are you on? Can you see that one she shares? Are you going to be able to see?
Yes, and I also have it in my email too.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Thank you.
do we know who the other applicant, I mean, not that it really matters, but the 845 number? Do you know who that is?
I do not. If the person who is on the phone with the 845-325, I can't even see that number, 2874, wants to identify themselves, you can unmute yourself and speak.
I wasn't sure if it was Miss Norwalk or not.
Hi guys, it's me, Alyssa. I was having problems with the Zoom app, so I called in instead.
Okay.
I think it was you, Alyssa.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I saw your name drop earlier in the number, but I didn't look up the number. Thank you.
Yep.
Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Do you
Process
want me,
for
do you want me to
MRS?
lie to you, or just, I can see that there's something on there with this really small writing, but sure.
Is that something I'm doing?
No,
Can you
he's on a
zoom in a bit?
laptop.
Oh,
You might just need to zoom in a little bit, Sandy,
I can do that.
unless somebody can get Michael a pair of glasses, reading glasses.
Okay, stop.
Or a desktop.
Right. Michael, I have a monitor if you need one.
You know something, the peanut gallery.
Is
No,
that
I can feel you judging me on Zoom.
No, I do have a monitor. If you need an extra, I have one.
I may take you up on it, but
We had one at one point too. Unfortunately, the neighbor snagged it.
damn neighbor.
is that better, Michael?
That's 1,000 times better.
All right, so I kind of was going through the RFI and trying to, a lot of this is just I was trying my stream of consciousness to try to get through and figure out what the process was. So I know we were supposed to go through and do a preliminary screening, which is why I sort of in the bottom create little check boxes so that I think the preliminary screening, my thought was that was just, do they have all the information? Do they submit all the criteria? And then evaluate on the rubric, and then consult with the police and fire chief, and then make our recommendation. So is that kind of correct what I have right now for the process?
Yeah, I think so. And Mike and Paul indicated that they would go through, or at least Mike did, the preliminary screening to let us know if we had everything.
Okay. So they're gonna go through and do all that, the preliminary?
That was the plan. I mean, again, I would expect that would happen when they put the information up on DocuShare, Dropbox.
Okay.
Oh, DocuShare, what is that?
I know.
Is that .com? I mean,
I think yeah.
90s?
It's AOL.
So then I was trying to pull, this is just basically, I pulled all the documentation out and tried to decide what are we looking for in that documentation. And I think a lot of it was just sort of the checkbox, right? Do they have it? Do they not? So sort of yes, no, pass, fail. To see if they have, their proposed hours of operation, that they list all their persons or entities having direct or indirect control. So all of these, unless anyone disagrees, the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these are all, I thought just yes or no, unless somebody thought there was something in there that would distinguish one from another, in which case I could put those in a rubric.
So say that again, the highlighted points are or are not in the rubric?
So they're not, because I didn't think there was going to
They were
be.
subjective?
They weren't, they're not, they're just, do they have it or do they not have it?
They're black and white.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, okay.
not like
Yes,
one
they
person's
shouldn't.
gonna get a 4, one's gonna get a 3, everyone's gonna get a 4, so why
Right.
even go through it?
It's not a subjective thing, it's a yes or a no, and that will throw any.
I was looking at these, but again, if somebody sees something else,
The last one, Sandy's the only one where I think there may be differences. I mean, I would imagine, though, they would write it to hit all of the different diverse groups.
I mean, I guess my thought on that is if they don't have a diversity plan to include all of those, isn't that an automatic, they didn't provide what we asked them for, and then in the preliminary, they don't make it through?
Yeah, it is an and not an or at the end.
Right, we said this is what we're expecting
Yeah.
of them. So do they have it or do they not? If they don't have it, I don't think that we would even look any further, would we?
No, I think that's a good point.
And then the ones below that are sort of, I don't think you can see my comments anymore though. Can you see my comments? I can't see them anymore.
No.
No.
I think because I blew it up so much. Oh, there they are, they're down below here. So the bottom 3 were, my questions of, are these a yes, no, or do these require some more subjectivity? Was there something about those that was gonna factor into our decision?
Well, I think the second to last one, the last 2, I think because they are, if applicable, you can't really do them on a yes, no basis.
Right, but they can say it's not applicable, right? That's their answer.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
But I don't know that, are we going to rank someone higher if they have another marijuana establishment proposed for that same property, or was that just a question of ours that we were curious about? What were we trying to ask with that question?
So I thought it was twofold. It was one, to understand if they had future plans, right, to be co-located. And I mean, the only way that I would see that this would affect the ranking would just be the opportunity to have another type of establishment, right? So if they had a small cultivation facility attached to the retail, but I don't get the sense, and just from what I remember from the conversation, and I know that this came from the information that town council provided to us, but I think this is just more understanding what's the scope of what they want within the town.
I think specifically because this process is related strictly to retail, we would otherwise have no way of knowing what their intentions were if we didn't ask the question for that location.
Mm-hmm.
But are we going to say, okay, they get extra points for the fact that they have a plan to put a cultivation there, or does that just for our own knowledge to ask that question?
Well, I mean, it potentially could be, additional revenue.
There is a potential for it to making it more attractive or less attractive, I guess, if, let's say given the space of the building that they're looking at doesn't really warrant a co-location. I think the former is more likely.
So do we want to include that in the rubric then? A 4 is yes, they do, and
Can we table that and look at the rubric first?
Yep.
And come back to it?
yep. So then I started getting into the things that I thought were more subjective in the documentation. I tried to find the review criteria that kind of fit there. So that's the ones that have something next to it. I found something in our review criteria that applies, that correlates nicely. And then there were a bunch of blanks sort of down below, which I didn't quite know. Again, what are we looking for? We didn't seem to have any criteria below that related to these, but I don't think they're yes, no questions either. So I think we're looking for something specific on those. And I just wanted to, I think we're missing something in the criteria in terms of why we asked for all this extra information here.
Well, I think for the qualifications, I think we want to understand, if they have previous experience because previous experience will obviously lend them a bit differently to the challenges or other expectations that they may have in operating in our town. So, and that's in respect to the qualifications of all close associates.
As well as the one below too, right?
But I hate the way that's stated. Qualifications of all close associates.
That's the CCC terminology,
Is it?
Michael. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounds like. I mean, do Pablo Escobar? Have you worked with Pablo Escobar? I mean, associates sounds so criminal. Just it does.
So something like this is what we're looking for. Did they demonstrate prior knowledge in marijuana establishments? Is that what we're looking for in that?
I think in marijuana establishments and operating a retail establishment,
Agreed.
operating or managing a retail establishment.
Typically retail.
I would say in this
Controlled
perspective, yeah.
substance. I mean,
Yeah.
They don't care if
Yeah.
anything else. They don't care if they have a cultivation or anything else.
No, I think that could be a variable too. And I might add there like prior knowledge and or experience. And I might break apart retail, kind of how you had it before to say in marijuana establishments or with retail, or managing or operating retail
So you think
establishments.
general retail, like not marijuana related? Is that
Do
what
you-
you?
Yeah.
I mean, does it matter if it's retail or is it just controlled substances, right? I mean, could it be a pharmaceutical dispensary that, somebody's moving into this and it's all about controlled substances and the ability of managing under regulation of controlled substances, isn't it?
I think it's both. I mean,
Related.
retail, it's a different beast, right? So I think it's both. I think it's retail and I think it's controlled substances.
I would agree that there is some benefit to having retail experience, regardless of what it is. I would rate prior marijuana
So-
retail experience higher
so-
than,
So the reason I ask
General.
that is, do you consider alcohol retail or do you consider a controlled substance?
I would call
Both.
that retail. Yeah.
I consider a controlled substance. You're very regulated on how you can sell and market alcohol.
Right. Well, anybody even selling widgets, I think is going to rate higher than somebody who has absolutely no experience selling anything.
Agreed.
Not as high as alcohol or marijuana, but
I want the widget seller.
okay.
So are we okay with
We'll
that?
get the cater.
So Sandy, I think just adding in there that they demonstrate prior knowledge or experience in marijuana establishments, retail establishments, or controlled substances. Is that what you're looking for, Michael?
Yeah, I would.
That sounds to me like it's
Pablo Escobar, is that what
Yes.
yes.
Come on.
The guy on the corner dealing out of the
Qualifications of close
trunk of his
associates.
car.
That's an FBI question. Tell me the qualifications of close associates.
All controlled substances?
Well, controlled substances are, you could be selling happy pills or
What if
marijuana, or you could be selling alcohol.
what if we say like regulated or something like that?
Regulated, I'm okay with regulated. That's fine.
Regulated what? Substances or regulated controlled substances? How are you
Just
regulated?
Regulated industries.
there you go.
You know something, out of nowhere, this is his talent. Out of nowhere, he drops it on us.
Okay, is that the same thing for the next one?
I think this is more.
More of a CCC thing. In
Yeah.
that they're trying to eke out whether somebody who may have a direct or indirect ownership is going to wind up having control over more than 3 locations. 3 retail locations.
Can I ask a question as I revisited the last question? Is CCC trying to get what I just kind of was joking about? Qualifications of all close associates with managed operational control. Like they want to know who are the people managing the operational control.
Yes,
Yes.
they're very specific about wanting to know who, like
That-
not only from a funding perspective, but who will be managing and operating.
That's not what we asked.
It is within the RFI. We included that in there.
Okay.
So Sandy, I think this is less about demonstrating prior knowledge and more about understanding potential.
The license process.
Yeah.
So is that this year?
Yeah, I think it's the first one on our criteria list.
All right.
I think it helps us to understand too, if there's somebody who is in communication with 5 different places, but we know they can only have 3 licenses. I think we have the right to evaluate really the seriousness or the commitment that they would bring to the town. Seriousness is probably not the right word, but I think just knowing, and this came up in our conversations, I remember with Brammer Bio, like where else were they looking? Are they serious about this? Or is it, are we going through hoops and conversations for something that might not return any results? I don't know if you guys feel the same about that, but.
I do, but the good thing about, at least with the CCC process, is we can regularly refer to the monthly report that they generate that shows who is applying for those licenses, so that, at least going into this process come September, we'll know what existing licenses are in place or in play. We would have to keep checking back to make sure that somebody with whom we're in the process of either negotiating an HCA or granting them one of the retail spaces is actually eligible.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I disagree with putting this in our criteria as a ranking. I mean, I think when you go to negotiate the host community agreement as a select board, I think that's something you can decide whether you want to move forward with it based on that at that time. But I don't know, that gets pretty subjective. And I don't know that I want to be saying, well, you've told me that you disclosed something, and now I'm going to hold that against you, where someone else maybe doesn't disclose that and gets in. So again, I guess that gets into the subjective piece that I don't really want to. I think if the select board has an issue with it, they can. We're just saying we recommend their company. We're not saying whether they're likely to come in or whether they have other interests. I don't think that's an EDC decision.
I was with you up until that last statement.
I think that's a select board decision at the time when they're deciding to agree to an HCA, that they can see whether they're really serious about coming into our town.
So is the select board going to know enough to ask the question?
Right. I think Michael and I would know, but I think that the board would appreciate the opinion of the EDC and whether or not, and I think it leads to an overall, like our overall decision, right? Like if we feel that somebody might not be committed to being here, we may not rank them as high.
So again, I think that gets really subjective, and it also potentially opens us up for like a bias situation where we're holding this against somebody because they disclosed that they have another location that they're looking at. I think on the flip side of that, Sandy, it does lead to, if they have existing ownership, right, it also allows us the ability not only to know that and know where those are, but to understand how they have been implemented too. That's fine. That's for the first part. This is a legitimate, demonstrates knowledge and understanding of licenses procedures. That's why we're asking that question and we're ranking them on that. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with saying, we don't like you as much as the other companies because we think that you're not as serious. And then a month later, they end up, pulling something in a different town that we don't even know about after our process before they sign the HCA. And we ranked another company lower because we didn't even know about that.
So this kind of leads into my concerns in my beginning question to ask you, Renee, was my understanding on HCAs, and I know I had a discussion with Laura offline and so forth, but my impression, and my original impression was we were going to give as many HCAs as possible. But as I work through the flow process on it, I can't see that happening because it's really going to limit the number of HCAs down the road. You're right, because you guys are going to, this committee is going to rank them. The select board is then going to look at the ranking and then send 2 to the planning board. Because they can't send 5 to the planning board. What happens if all 5 complete the applications? They only have 2 licenses.
We've gone back and forth on this, and certainly, I mean, this is what I've said previously. Like our decision or our priority as the EDC is to look at these and give a recommendation to the select board. I think we can provide an opinion to them on how we think they should negotiate HCAs.
Yeah.
I'll be very honest that because of the amount of money that applicants have to invest, I am less likely to support entering into multiple HCAs because of that, because I don't want it to be a rat race on who's going to get through the planning board first. And I understand that opens us up to potential loss of revenue or a delay in getting a retailer in town. But, just from my perspective, I feel like that's a risk to take. And go ahead,
and I would
Laura.
tend to agree with you. I would tend to agree with you. I don't want to get a situation where people spending tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to get this thing done through a planning process. I mean, I would love to marry someone, have them finish it, open up, and now we've got a partner. But I don't know. I'm kind of broken in the process of flow, because originally when I thought of it, and I absolutely will stand by what I said, as we're going to sign as many HCAs as possible. But when does the planning board, right? The planning board could easily say no to this because of traffic, because of mitigation of scent, or I don't know, whatever it could be, right?
Well, if I could just throw this into the discussion, they cannot even go to planning board without a provisional license from the CCC.
Right.
So, and not everybody is going to have their provisional license at the same time, so I do not see there being a run on planning board. They then have to get through planning board and get site approval and special permit. And I don't see that as backing up the process. And if they have to have a provisional license, then it is not the select board or the planning board having to make that decision as to who goes first. It is the CCC in granting that provisional license.
I agree, but they're still investing money in that process.
Agreed.
Right. And it's still who can get it faster. Right. And that's, and Laura, I mean,
that's
honestly,
that's the same in any town. I don't understand
I think our responsibility is first to recommend. I mean, we may come out and say, you know what, we only recommend 2, or we may come out and say we're recommending 5. Right. And I will voice both opinions of whether or not we negotiate HCAs with 2 or we negotiate with 5. But I think, and I don't want to to a certain extent, I want to shut this down because this decision is not within our control. It's with the select board, but I want them to understand both sides of it and why we should negotiate more HCAs than the licenses that we have and why we should not. And then I think it's a discussion for the select board.
That's fair. Can I ask a question though? So say someone, we rank them. The EDC ranks them, and then the select board signs whatever the number of HCAs. Is there a possibility, is there a protection? Does the planning board have the right to say, no? What happens if every planning board member believes that the retail is not right for this town?
And then they wouldn't have supported the change in the bylaw. Right? Remember, this went through planning board. I'm not saying that specific locations
Boy, that's
aren't going
that's a
to.
big. You're at the
Well,
you're at the casino table at that point.
I mean, here's the thing though, too, is we have to remember, and we said this beforehand, that, you know, once we enter into the HCAs, like our responsibility as part of the EDC is to support the applicants through the process, right? Like I expect somebody from the EDC to be there to voice our opinion to the planning board to say, look, you know, understand your concerns. These are the things that we've talked about with them beforehand. These are the things that we considered while we talked about the guidelines. Sandy or Sharon,
Notes.
yep, I don't know if you want to share those. So, you know, it's something that I think that there's more to it. It's not like we're going to go through this and then just be done. Like I don't want that to be what we do. Like I think that we need to be there as well. I mean, we all have various opinions on the planning board, but we have to trust that they're going to do the job, and we
Yeah,
need
and
to
I
be there,
guess
I think, to help that
and
process.
I guess I apologize. I siloed these things to this point, and then I just basically went through the flow process in the last probably week or so, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, holy moly, like I don't want to take applicants on that and sign 20 HCAs and create this rat race and leave all the responsibility of decision to the planning board, nor do I want to stop any process, have any committee that we've had several checkpoints if planning board should be meeting their standards of obligation. I don't want to find some obscure study on benzenes and marijuana and stop a planning board and stop the retail development of a marijuana facility when all indications is the town wants it.
Right. And we voted for it multiple times, right? And
Right.
I pretty much can say without a shadow of a doubt that there will not be one retailer that we put forth that somebody on that planning board is going to be against. Right. I do not expect in any way, shape, or form a unanimous decision. And I think that's just the nature of the beast.
Okay. All right.
My thought. I don't know if anybody has another opinion, but
I'm not even sure if what I'm talking about is in control, because we have independent elected boards that have an opinion and have a vote.
Right.
So I'm not sure if there's any protections that I could even put in place, but when
no, we have to trust that they'll do their review. You know, also to remember town council that supports the planning board. She is very knowledgeable in this space and has negotiated, you know, many HCAs and really, you know, helped to support and teach planning boards on this process. So, you know, I trust in that as well. And I think we could just do the best that we can do.
I surrender. Sorry to hijack you, Sandy.
Sandy, you're muted too.
Okay. All right, so then I had a few more here. Training plan for employees. I don't know, again, was that a checkbox or was that something specific we were looking for? Like a well-developed training plan? Is that what we're trying to see?
I think it's one of those, I think you see it. I think they lay it out and you know it when you see it, if it's well-defined training program.
Yeah, I think it has to be very well documented because it's multiple things, right? And think of it like a liquor license, right? Not only making sure that you're selling to the population that you're permitted to sell, but that you recognize somebody who may be under the influence, that they actually understand.
Security, safety, and just knowledge, right? I mean, of the product.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So is that what I have good then?
I think so.
I agree.
Ensuring the protection of public health. What are we looking for there?
I think that's a similar
It's
item.
redundant.
Same thing?
Yeah, I think it's redundant.
Okay.
I don't think it's specifically just training though.
No, I would say specifically like waste.
Explain.
With things that they need to dispose of that may be out of date, they're no longer allowed to sell.
Yeah. I mean,
How that's disposed
Does
of.
it have a shelf life?
Send it to 104 Newcomb Street for proper disposal of expired materials. You know,
I
gotta
would
have-
also, yeah, I would
gotta
also argue
have
that,
a say on that one.
yeah. I think the diversion from there's a comment with regards to making sure that it's not diverted.
Maybe someplace else though.
What was that, Sandy?
We have a diversion plan someplace else. I don't
Yeah,
know. That was one of the other things that we asked about.
it's sort of related, yeah.
But so I don't think they would put that in here. They would put that in the other section.
I would agree.
So we're kind of the same training plan is essentially what we're looking for there.
I don't think it's training. I think it's that they demonstrate that there's a protection plan in place, and let's see what they come back with. Mike, were you gonna talk? I saw you keep highlighting like there's some noise, but I don't know if it's just background noise.
Just eating my dinner, Renee. No, I agree with that. I think it make this one a little bit more open-ended.
Mike,
It's
you
like you don't throw out day-old bagels. They go home with the employees, right?
I was gonna say, you don't want expired material.
Yeah. See about training plan.
All right, community outreach. Isn't that a requirement?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
So is this just a yes or no then?
No, because
you
I'd
rank-
like
you
to
can
see what their
rank-
plans are, right?
Yeah.
Like if they give us a shoddy plan, just saying, oh yeah, we're going to donate some money versus like, I would like to see something where they really are like participating in the community and being good corporate partners, right? Like we have Earth Day cleanup and they're bringing some staff members to help. Like I think that there's certainly a level of commitment in that.
Isn't that down here though? Financial or otherwise, municipal benefits?
No, it's different. I consider it
Look at an
different.
example of community outreach. That's not volunteering, that's not money. What is that?
I think it could be all of those things, but I think the difference is community versus municipal.
Like we had some applicant that might be on the line now talk about how they're gonna do proposals of opening applications to only Norton citizens first, right? I mean, that's different than a community outreach program where you're doing different program. I think that's separate from what's down below.
I think that's the other one though that Sandy is.
This here though, right? Is
Yeah.
benefits packages for employees, isn't that?
That's different. That benefits package for employees that's a community outreach program. Opening up an application process just to the citizens of Norton is different than employee benefits.
That's true.
So, okay, so explain to me how this is different than other proposals for positive community impact.
So a municipal benefit could be in respect to police officer training, right? That's a municipal organization. Community outreach could be more about like say need, or you're going to help fundraise, or you're going to like, again, like if I go back to Earth Day, you're going to help clean up the town, right? Like you're going to be a member in the community.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to when you have a position, you're going to open up just to the town only. And then while that falls on employee benefits, it really is an outreach. You're giving the option to the town bureaus. You're basically saying, I'm going to partner on, like you said, Earth Day. You're going to, you have I don't know.
It could also be encouraging
Maybe
responsible
marketing
use,
plan,
some sort of
yeah.
education plan.
Right.
Wording here we're looking for, made commitments to provide some type of community outreach. Is that what I'm looking for?
I would probably phrase it like the others, Sandy, and just say, demonstrates a well-developed community outreach plan.
And we're going to see very quickly if someone just puts the same answers in each one, right? Or our ranking is, our proposal is the same in each one.
All right, and the same thing for this next one then?
Yeah.
So I guess the same type of thing with the next one, right? So environmental sustainability.
Somebody that came to speak in front of us talked about environmental sustainability, and I felt like I wasn't quite grasping that, so I don't have much to comment on here.
Single-use plastics, that sort of thing.
And
So
sourcing.
using, you know, other means, recycled packaging, things that are not single-use plastic, I think is.
This is in sourcing of retail products.
Right, that I was thinking of it more like a vendor, like what did they get from like a manufacturing facility? So I didn't know how.
Well, we can look and see what people put
Yeah, I
for
don't
that.
know if
Okay.
retail products includes the packaging in which it comes, or is it strictly the product?
Yeah, let's
In
see what
which
comes back.
case, you know, then are they buying from, you know, operations that are run by solar and gathering their own water?
Okay. Is this even in there? All right, so these bottom ones here, I was trying to then, these were part of the criteria, but I wasn't sure where we would find evidence that they met this criteria. And this one, oh, there it
Oh,
is.
that's in the one that we talked about, that
The
first one.
We're back, I don't know why I didn't put that one in there.
Yeah.
That that's here, right?
I think
Yeah,
above.
and above. I would say both.
Mhm.
All right. So then we get to these. Fits within the town's goals for geographic diversity and locations. I guess this is, again, one that I would put on the select board. I don't necessarily, if we have two applicants, let's say going right next to each other, like, and I get they can't be, they can't be that, right? They can't be 500 feet apart or whatever. But we find them both favorable. I don't think it's up to us necessarily to say, well, which of those two is more favorable? Because I think that's more of a select board decision. And let's say they're both the top two, and then the third one, for whatever reason, the select board doesn't like and doesn't want to go to those. I just think this, again, looking at I think we're ranking them, and then the select board can say, okay, well, we can only give 2, or we can give 5, or however many they decide they can give. It's up to them in terms of how many HCA's they decide to sign, and they can make that decision based on if they don't want to sign 2 in the same location. Otherwise, they're both going to get ranked poorly, right? And
I don't know that,
with
do
neither
you
one
think
of them.
they would, I'm sorry.
If we're saying that there's another one, there's 2 proposals in the exact same area, then we're going to have to rank both of them down for that, because they will happen to choose locations that are close to each other. So both of them should get docked for that then.
Yeah,
And we
so
really
I mean,
have-
And
We have
then,
no way of knowing if one or both even have a chance of success in that location. So grading them on that, I agree, probably isn't fair.
So you're saying location is going to carry more weight than anything else?
I'm saying it's not, Michael. I'm saying take this out. I'm saying this is, I mean, the idea behind this criteria is that we can't have 2 marijuana, retail locations within 500 feet of each other. But I'm not going to knock someone down because they happen to choose a location similar to another company and now we're going to say both of them are now lower.
Equal. They're equal, right? I mean,
I wouldn't use this as a criteria.
lower, they would be equal because they both are in the similar location.
Right, but in comparison to a third location in another town that's isolated, they are lower.
So we don't want somebody in a good location.
I think I do think it's part of the ranking process. I mean, if we have two people in the same location, like say, for example, we like both locations, but we would say, well, there are two in there, right? So they're both a 4 versus that third one that's at another location. Well, there's no other competing, retailer there. So we might put them as a 5.
But you're not going to have both of them there. You can't.
Right, that's why I'm saying, so to your point, you would rank the two in the similar location with the same score because that would just feed into their overall score. I have no idea why my camera is doing this.
Now they're potentially going to be lower than somebody who's in another location.
Right.
And that third
Yeah.
location may not be ideal for retail. Let's use the example of the mini golf location. If I was looking at it, I'd say that's an ideal location. And I think giving them a point less than somebody who, wants to be in the middle of a neighborhood somewhere that just happens to, not that that's going to fit within the overlay, but in a location that is not going to get as good a visibility and traffic, just because they happen to have chosen a site that happens to be next to somebody else who chose that site.
I don't think you can take location out of this. It really is one of those things. I mean,
This is very specific. It is a goal for geographic diversity.
right.
You're saying
So it's not location, it's just the geographic diversity of the location.
But if I have a choice between, I can tell you right now, if I have, say, let's just do one location. If I have a choice between someone right in the middle of 123 and one by Xfinity Center, they're going to play favorites with me. I want one near Xfinity Center.
Michael, that's not what this is saying, though.
The problem is if I have multiple locations, does that discount those versus the one on the middle of 123? Is that your?
This is saying if I had 2 applicants who chose to be right next to each other, according to this, we would dock them because they happen to choose locations. They could be great locations, but they happen to choose ones that were next to each other. Now,
So
again,
it could be by the Xfinity Center, and they're going to get docked when the one on 123 won't.
I get what you're saying, but how? I'm sorry, maybe I didn't read it properly.
Let me ask you this though. So we're talking about this particular item to be kind of an overarching ranking, right? Aren't we really looking for does this particular applicant fit within our goal for geographic diversity, right? So kind of, Laura, back to your point, right? Remember that property that we talked about where those 2 houses are in the middle? It's industrial. It's fine for a like a cultivator or manufacturer, like more industrial, but we wouldn't really want to see retail there. So,
This is a retail only application.
It is, I understand that. So when we're looking at geographic diversity for the particular applicant, I think we just need to look at it to say, look, we want geographic diversity throughout the town. So we have 2 applicants. Does their location meet that geographic diversity, independent of anybody else who might want to be in that?
So I think that's a different question, though, Ring. I think you're just asking, and we can put that as another criteria. We don't have that as a criteria anywhere, but we could put in there as a criteria, does the location chosen work well for a retail, specifically for a retail establishment? Because yes, our overlay should be okay for everyone, but we also did talk a lot about the fact that certain locations would be more beneficial for retail and other ones would be more beneficial for, cultivation or something else. So if you wanted to include that, I think that's a totally different question. I don't think that's what this one's saying.
I think with respect to retail, the only thing you have to go by is the bylaw change that we are requiring that retailers not be within 500 feet of one another. And I think that's how we have to judge them.
Okay, then I think this has to be in there. And if we have 2 applicants within 500 feet of each other, they do get docked. And I mean,
even though it's the best location for a retailer.
Well, I mean, based on what you said, if that's going to be the criteria in the 500-foot buffer, right?
I think again, that's a question where if we have 2 applicants that are in the same location, right? Hopefully one of them will be stronger than the other, and you pick from the 2 the stronger of the 2. as a select board, that's the one that you're gonna assign the HCA for.
So what if we list this as more of an item that when we recommend these to the select board, this becomes a point that we say. So we might say we are recommending 3 applicants. However, based on the town's goals for geographic diversity, please note that these 2 applicants are within the same location. And I mean, even if they are within the same location or near the same location, they may be outside the 500-foot buffer, right? But we at least make them aware that, there's either they're within the 500-foot buffer and we'd only be able to go with 1, or they're outside the 500-foot buffer, but we still feel that geographic diversity wouldn't be met. Because, remember how Denise has said multiple times, like, how many do we need on Route 140, right? So I think maybe this becomes a recommendation item to say, here's what we feel about this, but the board ultimately has to select.
So when we were doing this, so back when I did a co-op at BJ's, when we were looking at store locations, we normally would do this in like, it was like a primary location and a sub location, and I'm not describing it. That's not their descriptors of it. But it was like the primary, did it meet the primary focus area? And then did it meet the sub focus area? So the ranking, when you were doing it in a ranking format, the first ranking always carried more weight, but then it was slightly discounted because of the sub location. So let me give you an example, and I think that's what meets this criteria. If I have 2 applicants that are in the Xfinity area, that's a primary area. That's where we want one. I'm just talking out loud. I think that's where we want one primarily. But if we have 2 applicants underneath there, it almost kind of brings it into a subdivider, like, okay, 1 and 2. And it may help decide this process if we break that process up. Because I would tell you right now, I would favor someone, I would favor two applicants over in the Xfinity area versus over on 123. I just would. And I don't want to discount them. I don't want to make that go from 1 and 2 to 3 or 4. I think that's or 2 or 3. I think that defeats the whole purpose of the scoring system.
Well, that's why I think we take it out, like Renee said, just make a note that.
Is there a way to sub score it?
I think it's kind of getting, I don't know, a little complicated. Like when we look at our overall rankings, then we'll take a look at this and we'll say, okay, these 2 are in the same, or these, like, especially if they're within 500 feet of each other, we're going to have to say, you can't choose both of these. You have to choose one or the other. If they're within 500 feet, that's in our bylaws, Michael. We can't have them within 500 feet of each other.
No, I get that, but an HCA is not an application.
And I'd like to defer to the select board to make that decision. So we make the note and then we let the select board decide whether they want to, how many HCAs they do and whether they want to consider that when they sign them or not.
Okay.
We're just ranking them based on how desirable they are overall, and then.
Well, I can tell you now that statement right there would not pass the legal muster.
What's that?
If you throw it on the select board to decide between 2 locations within 500 feet of each other, and everything else looks very similar, if I was the person that got denied, I would sue the select board.
Mike, we've talked about this. There's no, and applicants have tried to do that. There's no legal standing for it. And we're very clear in the RFI that regardless of what the recommendations are, it doesn't mean that there is going to be an HCA that the board enters into. So I
keep in mind, our only role is to make recommendations that with respect to the respondents it considers to have submitted proposals deemed to be in the best interest of the town. We're just saying, yes, they're in the best interest. No, they're not in the best interest. I think it would be nice to also give them a ranking and some sort of a, extra information, since we're going to be going through all these and we can give them more than just yes or no. But ultimately, that's all we are charged to do according to what we have.
All right, I will.
All right, so then the next one, the location. This is, I would pull this one apart. Location is appropriate, and we had something about potential impacts on parking, potential impacts on, what was the other one?
Did you say hurricane? What did you just say?
I thought you said hurricanes too. I'm like, are they making hurricanes now? That's
I don't know. Did you see my head pop up there? I'm like, wait a second.
Potential impact on parking, traffic, and queuing of customers. So I found where we asked them about parking and queuing of customers, I did not find anywhere in the evidence where we would ask them about traffic. We
If I could
never asked them.
off- If I could offer, it does say including but not limiting to the following.
No, but I'm saying in the required documentation, we never asked for anything about traffic.
Right, but in 3C, detailed operating policies and procedures from the retailer, including but not limiting the following, and then it lists security, personnel, prevention, marijuana, da 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 da. So I think by reading it within the review criteria that we may ask about it, and by giving them the opportunity to, by saying including but not limited to, and for retail specifically, my feeling is that traffic is a known and common concern and should be addressed.
So this is I know the conversation, I feel pretty strongly that if we didn't specifically ask somebody for something, then we can't dock them for not including it in their documentation and their submission requirements. We can certainly ask them at the interview if there's something that we don't feel like we asked about in here, and traffic does seem to agree it'd be a big one, but we didn't specifically ask about that. So I can put it in the rubric, but I would say that if anybody did not include something about traffic, we during that interview process ask them what the traffic plan is, to be fair.
So yeah, and I think that's fine, Sandy, because I think that people, given our discussions and given the emphasis around traffic, even though a lot of that is legacy based on the first couple stores that opened, maybe we just put in parentheses, stick it under, the same area, but put in parentheses that there was not a request for required documentation. So we understand that, but at the same time, I think this needs to be a ranking.
So I'll put in the ranking, but I won't put in the checklist that this has had to be part of the documentation. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Since it's not specifically asked for, we don't toss them out if they don't provide it.
Right, and we asked them about that as opposed to just going by what they gave us.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
All right, and then the next one, the potential detrimental municipal impacts, we also didn't specifically ask about that. I guess when we're talking about a retail, right, shop, so we're not talking about smells. I guess I'm not sure. We can certainly ask more questions at the interview, but I don't know what we're looking for here exactly.
So
ask those questions in the interview because we didn't ask the part.
I thought we did though. I thought we did mention something about within the community impact section, but I mean, detrimental municipal impacts, could be anything from traffic to roadways to driving under the influence. What are some other things? Substance abuse, we've talked about that. Like, I think all of those would fit under here, and they should have some sort of mitigation measures, specifically when you think about somebody under the influence. I would see a mitigation measure is that they are trained to identify it and get in touch with our police department to intervene.
I would also
this and leave it in, but again, I don't necessarily expect, since we didn't specifically ask for it, that they'll have put that in there. And I think if somebody does and somebody else doesn't, we should ask them. Like if one applicant, talks about their mitigation measures and we're really impressed by that, I think we owe it to the rest of them to ask them if they have something in place as well.
So would you not view the queuing of customers as a potential detrimental municipal impact?
Well, I think we already addressed that in the rubric, right? We already had another criteria that addressed that. So you don't need 2 criteria addressing one issue. Because now you're going to give them, what, 4 points for one, 4 points to the other, and now, again, that's getting weighted differently.
I'm fine doing it similar to the one that we did above.
And then finally, proposal integrates into the overall goals of the town of Norton. I mean, this is super, super subjective, right? Which makes me a little uncomfortable.
I mean, everything though here doesn't have to be black and white, right? Like we need to apply some common sense and really our thoughts about the town and where we see the town going into this process. So I would expect as residents that we would be somewhat subjective to this. You know, and I think of some of the talks that we've had specifically, you know, when we think about the overall goals, I mean, our overall goal is really to promote economic development. And, you know, I know it was said in actually a couple presentations about, you know, if we're in this area, the benefits are also that, you know, people will go to Alberto's or people will go to Rochi's or people will go here or there, right? Like it can potentially generate more revenue. So I think those are some of the things that I would expect to see, you know, as well as overall goals being that we have good corporate partners. I don't necessarily think that the other items aren't weighing that, but I think this kind of takes a step back to say, okay, now let's think of this overall for our town. How do we feel about this proposal?
Yeah, I personally feel like we've addressed everything else up here that you just mentioned. So I guess, again, if there's something specific we're looking for, I'd rather say that so that we're all sort of looking at this in the same way.
I think there may be things that come up through our conversation.
So
sorry, I was just going to say it's not my camera. It's something about my internet connection because it's doing it when I shut my camera off.
So does everyone want me to leave this in then?
I think it was intentionally put in there to be subjective. That was my opinion. I think that was the intent of it.
I would say yes to your question, Sandy. That would be my opinion.
Anyone else? Michael, Mike?
I would have to surrender to Laura that it was put in there to be subjective. Because I mean, there's no arguing. It is absolutely subjective.
Yeah, it's almost you don't know it until you see it.
And I think it allows us to really discuss if if there's something that we don't feel right about and we can't pinpoint what that is, we should have the ability to discuss that with the group. Right? I mean, again, like we can't be so rigid or defined in the process to not really think about, you know, just every other thing that we've heard on social media or from other residents or in meetings that we shouldn't also consider in this. And it's hard to pinpoint right now because this is the first time we're doing the process. But I think we need the ability to have some subjectivity.
I'm fine with leaving in, I guess, my concern, and I understand someone's not going to come back and sue us, right? But I'm all about being able to defend and justify why we ranked somebody one person over another, and I really don't want to see any kind of bias coming into that. And that's where I get concerned when I see something like this. That opens up that possibility.
I understand that, but don't you think the fact that we have the entire review committee weighing in that will balance that?
Possibly,
You know,
and I feel like if we can't pinpoint it, then, and we just sort of, I think we just have to be really careful about justifying this one.
So maybe we weight that one lower.
Well, if you find something in there, again, rather than just saying my gut tells me this is a 4 or 3, I think people need to be able to say why.
yeah, but I think sometimes you might not be able to say why, and you have a gut feeling. I mean, again, this is a recommendation and I can say, you know, if somebody on paper, right, we're ranking them and they meet all the criteria, but something just doesn't feel right, I want the ability to say something just doesn't feel right. And I know that their numbers might line up, but you might just not get a good sense from that applicant. And I think that, you know, and this might go back to where we discussed, you know, we may bring applicants in to speak to them. Maybe we change that and we decide for ourselves that we are going to have everybody come in, right? And they have the opportunity for 15 minutes to present to us, and then we have 15 minutes to ask them questions, and then it becomes standard. But I gotta say, you know, having talked to different applicants, like I think that we get a sense for how they'd fit within the town, you know, whether or not they'd be good business people, because anybody can put anything in writing on an application, but there has to be some level of really, I don't want to call it like emotional commitment, but you just have to feel right about it. I mean, I think that's our responsibility.
Yeah, but again, I think that's.
I know you want to be able to quantify.
I'm not biased, Renee. That's the part I have the issue with, because I've heard comments already that I'm not about things that we consider important that I don't think should be coming in, factoring in. I don't want that to be factored into our rubric. I think there's something that should not be factored in here, and I don't want to, you know, get into, well, I have this gut feeling about this, and if you can't quantify that in some way or explain that in some way, you don't have to quantify it, but if you can't explain it in some way, then I will take issue with it, because I think it could be for any reason that's not necessarily a good reason.
I think that the intent was to be subjective, but I think you should be able to express what that subjectivity is. And it should not just be a feeling. And I'm trying to think of an example, and to actually Sandy's point, every example that I think of actually relates to something within the rubric. So while I'd like to just leave it there, because we may not know what we don't know, and there may
it's a catch-all.
Because we haven't, again, we've never seen these before. We don't know, but there's something that could make somebody stand out, and that's fine. But the idea of my gut tells me this isn't a good applicant gets into some pretty, I don't know, not so good territory.
Mike, did you want to weigh in?
No, I was just supporting Laura. It's a catch-all, right? Like, you've gone through the 30 questions prior. There's some, you know, quantitative scoring, and some of these, quite honestly, they need to be qualitative. You know, and you know, to me, I see that as the catch-all. You know, you've gone through all the scoring, and at the very end of the day, do we believe that this candidate in the proposal is going to be good for the town? You know, whether it's binary yes, no, or there's a scoring associated with it, I think it's still a valid question.
Yeah, again, I don't disagree with that. I would like us to agree that we should be able to provide a reason for that.
I think that's fine. I think that's acceptable.
Yeah, you shouldn't be able to say it shouldn't be a feeling or a gut instinct. You should be able to express what your reasoning is for your scoring.
Is everybody else fine with that?
I'm fine with that. Like I said, I mean, there are times that I come up and I have a gut feeling about something. I guarantee you I can find a reason why that is.
Okay,
But I want the option to be able to say something doesn't feel right, and this is where I'm leaning towards. And you know, again, this isn't going to be, you know, that one item isn't going to make or break. We have 9 people who are involved in this. But those 9 people need to have the ability to provide their own opinion.
Maybe it doesn't go within the rubric and it's just simply a discussion item for the end of the process. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah,
Because
again,
I think scoring that is difficult.
I just, again, don't want it to get into dicey territory.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to score, but I'd like the option just because we haven't been through this, if there's something that pops up, and said, oh, this makes them a really good fit for the town, and we just aren't aware of what that it is yet.
And understand that the majority of this is still, it's not qualitative. It's still quantitative. It's still very much, there's still a lot of subjectivity in all of this.
It is, yeah. I will give you that. And I was
trying to number and numerically put anything on this because that's not the goal of a rubric. It's just to sort of look at the overall piece. But I also think you should be able to say, why did I think it was a 4 versus a 3? And I think in general, if we're, we are probably all going to agree within one category anyway. And the only ones you really need to get into major discussions on are the ones where you have a serious disagreement. So is everybody okay with all of this that I have?
Yeah, I think it's good. Thank you, Sandy.
All right, so I'll pull that whole right-hand column out and put it into a nicer format. I'll probably reach out to Anthony since he was the one who said he would format. So I'll let him make it look pretty.
What is our scoring? Is it 1 through 5? Did we determine that?
I was going to go 1 to 4, but it doesn't matter. I'm kind of used to the 4-point scale, but it doesn't. We feel strongly about 5. I'm fine with that.
Is that used in school?
Yeah, it's used for like MCAS and lots of different.
Can you explain what the 1 through 4 is? Only because I'm used to 5 and 3 is kind of like, it's just average, right? It's not good, it's not bad. Like, where does that just average fit in 1 through 4?
So usually 1 just really sucks. And actually, if you get a lot of any 1s, really we have to talk about if we even want to push that person forward, right? 4 is exemplary. And then you have sort of the 2 and the 3 is probably where you're going to have the most disagreement in terms of some people will go 2, some people will go 3. But the smaller the scale, I think the more agreement there's going to be. Like if you do 5 or 6, you're going to see a lot more discrepancies.
Yeah.
Is it, I'm fine with a 4-point scale, but on some of these, do we think somebody may deserve 0 credit for some of these?
Well, if they don't provide anything, then that's not what you're saying. If they don't provide the information at all, then they don't make it past our preliminary. That to me would be a 0, right? If they don't even give us the information.
Okay,
Is it Mike?
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Laura. Mike, do you mean that they didn't provide the information or that what they provided is not worth a 1?
Yeah, I mean, well, I suppose if they provide it and we think it's just terrible, they get 1. But if they, we said, hey, what's your training plan for employees? And they said, well, we haven't thought about that yet. Well, I don't want to give them a 1 for that.
No, I think that goes up to Sandy, the first part of this on determining whether or not they've submitted their required documentation.
Yeah, if
right.
they don't have a plan, then that's them just mentioning the plan doesn't mean they submitted that.
So,
they
all right. So another.
We're knocking you out.
Right. So another way of saying it is that if any of these items are missing from the proposal, then they're automatically sort of disqualified or they need to resubmit.
I think we put language in there that disqualifies them, that we said we would not review.
We did. We said we would reject anything that wasn't, if anything was not provided, we can reject the application.
So I think if we get back from the preliminary screening, any documentation that says no, they don't even hit our agenda.
So for clarification, 1, to use Sandy's word, sucks. 4 is exemplary. So we would say 2 is below average and 3 is above average. Is that a good way of looking at it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess average is probably not the best term.
Yeah, I don't know what else to use.
Yeah.
Above expectations, below expectations?
something like that.
No met expectations. There's always that middle one. So
Oh,
whatever it
Yeah,
is,
that's the
Three usually is three usually is met expectations. 4 usually is above exceeding expectations. 2 is just below, and 1 is, you failed. Which I was almost ready to say, if you get a 1 in a category, I almost don't want to consider you. But I guess that would depend on what the 1 was in. I don't know that I want to be that black and white, but that's kind of my initial thinking is you get a 1 in something and
Are we weighting any of these?
I think we look at the scores, and then again, to me, I don't think it's just a tally. I
Okay.
think if you get 1s, we have to look at that seriously as whether we would even recommend them.
Danny, will you just put that, whatever that 1 through 4 criteria is
Yeah, I'll put
somewhere in the
that.
document, just so we have it for reference?
Yeah, I'll come up with good words for it that make it clear.
I like sucks.
I'm fine with sucks.
Very to the point.
Anything else, Sandy?
Nope, that's it.
Anything from anyone else on the review process? Okay, so the special town meeting's in a couple days on Saturday. I noticed that there was, may have been a couple days ago, the post from the EDC. I don't know who did that, Laura, if you did it, thank you, or whoever put that information out there. Is there any other things that we want to do as a group or individually to try to get people to come to the town meeting? Or other information? Should we put something back out, maybe back to the info session as well? Kind of a, like, piggybacking on a reminder that town meeting is in 2 days or tomorrow or whenever we'd want to push something else out. Comments, opinions? Okay, so we feel like the social media that we put and the communications we put are adequate?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good deal. So Michael, I think you were going to talk about the business survey. It's next in our meeting. Michael. I sure you're muted. Michael Tool.
Oh, he said, give me a minute.
What?
He wrote in the chat, give me a minute.
I didn't hear you, Sandy, you cut out. Oh, I see you.
Give me a minute in the chat.
Okay. Messini, is your message earlier? Oh, that's from way earlier about being on mute. While we wait for Michael in respect to the meeting minutes, the only minutes that are out are the August 12th ones. So we'll talk about those next. I lost the other 2 in my email, so Anthony resent those to me earlier today. So I'll take a look and get those out to the group for next week's meeting or next meeting.
Does anyone have the survey that you had gone over initially, way back before I joined?
Michael survey?
Yeah.
I can look. I don't remember actually ever getting it electronically.
I just checked my files. I do not. There's not too many places it would be.
And did you see Michael's comment?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm in my email.
He said
Okay.
he's.
1, 2, 3, 4. So, I mean, it's already 9:27, so why don't we'll just put this on the next agenda. We have still 4 members here. Do you guys want to go through the August 12th meeting minutes to approve those, or you want me to push that to the next meeting as well?
We can do that.
Okay. So those were sent. You know what? I don't think I had them posted online, but they were sent in an email, I believe, 2 nights ago. Let me try to find it. I just want to look real quick at my last emails just to see if I have anything from Michael. And I do not.
It's August 12th, that one? Is that what you said?
Yep, I sent the email Monday for 8:24 at 4:24 a.m.
I have them here.
So whenever you're ready, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting, August 12th, 2020.
So moved?
Seconded.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, we'll do a vote. Sandy?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
I'm going to put Michael as not voting. Mike Massini?
Yes.
And I vote yes myself. So those are approved, and I will get those out and submitted to the to the others. Any other topics for discussion? Okay, so I know the next meeting on the agenda is listened to be determined. That'll be based on the review process. So when we finalize, I believe right now it looks like September 10th. I will confirm that with Mike and Paul and those members who aren't here tonight, and then send that out via email. Okay, if no other topics, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
And thank you. And Sandy,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Michael Toole is not here. I will list him as departing at 9:25. Mike,
Yes.
and I vote yes myself. And meeting is adjourned as of 9:31 p.m. Thank you guys. Appreciate your help.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Good night, Mike, Cindy, and Laura, and Renee, and I hope you all have a wonderful night.
Good night.